Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of Monday Night Must See TV with the Hudson Valley Squares. We're doing kind of a sequel of the last episode. So last time we talked about those debut albums that maybe that particular band never really quite topped. Well, how about a band who had a pretty good or a mediocre or a really shitty debut album, and the second album just totally kicked its ass, as Stephen Keeler is jumping in as well. So let me introduce everybody here today. We've got Craig Kaminsky in the house, Rob Lasanti, Lynn Versace, Butch Jones, Chris Allo is our center square tonight, Count Ralphus, Ralph Tambora, Ryan Scow, Bryce from Bryce Talks Metal, and Steve Keeler. What's up, everybody?
What up?
Hello.
All right. Killer second albums. Bryce, you're going to kick us off tonight. Let's hear your three.
All right, so for this one, the first choice was pretty obvious for me, and by no means is their first album shitty or whatever, like you kind of said there at the beginning, but I'm going to go with Megadeth, Peace Sells. I mean, the first album's great. I think Lynn mentioned it last week as they didn't top Killing Is My Business, but I think they topped it a lot of times, especially on this album. It pretty much maintained that intensity and aggression, but, the songwriting got better, the production got better. For me, everything got better. Really consistent, great album. I rank it in the top 5 metal albums ever. So that is my first choice.
Wait, hang on already.
With the cassette pick right off the bat, right?
Oh, right off the bat, we're pumping the bricks.
Wait a minute. Did she say that Killing Is My Business was never topped by Megadeth?
No, we said top several times.
Oh,
I said
it was topped.
I said it was topped. Somebody picked it last week. I think it was it Lynn or somebody?
That's what I'm saying. Lynn, did you say that it was not topped?
I never said anything. I don't remember what I said yesterday.
Megadeth.
That's a good answer.
Okay.
Somebody had this. Somebody picked this.
I think I might have said something about Megadeth, but I don't know if I said topped, not topped.
So,
It's always convenient when you say something controversial, then I don't know. I don't remember anything about that.
You said deny everything.
I don't remember
Maybe
yesterday.
I don't know.
I just
Sorry,
remember
Bryce, go ahead.
doing what they told me.
all right. So another one that was kind of obvious for me is Judas Priest, going from Rock-a-Rolla to Side Wings of Destiny. They pretty much went from like a bluesy rock, kind of hard rock album on that first one to just kicking it into full metal gear here.
Dude, that
Fantastic
did mention.
album. I mean, everything on here is pretty much great, but Victim of Changes, The Ripper, Island of Domination are a couple of my favorites. So that one's pretty obvious for me. And last one, I'll go slightly more, not quite as obvious, but I'll go with Cradle of Filth, Dusk and Her Embrace, which they went from Principle of Evil Made Flesh in 94. They had an EP between, which was a pretty significant EP, kind of bridging that gap, but they went from, kind of straightforward black metal. There was some of those symphonic elements and gothic elements on the first album, but they went full blown with it on Dusk and Her Embrace in 96. Love the sound they were doing there. I think a lot of bands were trying to imitate them after they did it because they pretty much did it perfectly. And then you had several other bands popping up, like this one band, Hecate Enthroned, or Hecate Enthroned, however they pronounce it, from somewhere over there, like Scotland, I think. They were really going on that full Cradle of Filth type of metal. I know Ancient, as Nick mentioned last week, kind of shifted into that sound after their debut album as well. But yeah, Dusk and Her Embrace, much better than the debut, in my opinion, from Cradle of Filth.
Cool. Good choice. Mr. Scow.
All right, so I got Karen's picks first. I'm going to go with her. So she almost picked Priest, but then she said, you know what? I think that'll get discussed enough. Fair enough. So we went with something else. So we went with Cream. Fresh Cream, good album, very bluesy, solid. But if that's had been the only album Cream had ever done, I don't know how much we'd still be talking about them today. I think they'd be kind of a cool 60s footnote. But they came out with 2 more albums, and one of them was Disraeli Gears, and if Sunshine, Strange Brew, Sunshine of Your Love, Tale of Brave Ulysses, one of those power trio late 60s acts that really invented hard rock, kind of lay the groundwork for where heavy metal would go in a couple of years. So I agree, an improvement. Second one, she said, I had to clarify on this. She said Motorhead. So I said, well, do you include On Parole? I know they recorded it first, but they didn't put it out. It ended up getting shelved for a couple of years. She said no. So I said, all right, so Motorhead versus Overkill. Yes, all right. right away. I'm agreed. Motorhead's Grid album, solid debut. The title track was one of their iconic tracks, but Overkill is one of the best albums they ever wrote. Great artwork, title track, Stay Clean, Capricorn, I'll Be Your Sister. Every track on this. Damage Case, Metropolis. Awesome. So for the third track, she said, we're going to go something totally different. And she wasn't sure if she wanted to pick this one because it's a little unusual for the show. But we said, fuck it. We kind of talked her into it. Or, I think she was going to do it anyways. And that is Public Enemy. Takes a nation of millions to hold us back compared to the debut Yo Bum Rush the Show. First one was good, but the second Public Enemy album obviously is iconic. I think unless you've been living under a rock for the last 40 years, you probably heard the track Bring the Noise and also Don't Believe the Hype, another good song. So that album is just iconic. So I could not find my copy. I think it's upstairs. So I do have the first couple.
I can't find my copy either.
Yeah, I was gonna say I must have misplaced mine. So
I'm telling you, you know what? I will go to bat all day and all night. It's a great album, but we don't have to really dig into it. But yeah, so she's going with the second Public Enemy album.
I think I burned mine.
Love that band. Oh. And so those are her three. I'm moving to my three next. All right, gonna get my props.
Yeah, something tells me I'm gonna need to see these logos.
Nope. First one, well-known band, a little obvious, but I just thought it was just too. I couldn't leave it out. So to me, this is the best thrash metal album ever written that doesn't involve Jeff Hanneman and Kerry King, and that is the second Dark Angel album, Darkness Descends. The debut is great. We Have Arrived. Awesome album. Gene Hoglan's great. Nothing wrong with it. But they kicked it up 1,000 times on the second one. Hoglan's out of his fucking mind on this. The guitar playing is it's insane. It slows down only enough to have those really heavy mosh pit parts, and then it kicks right back up again. There's no like gentle, soothing, intros or outros or melodic choruses. Just a great fucking thrash album. And it's catchy as hell, and you can sing along with it if you could sing as fast as Don Dottie. Good luck on that. Second album, I'm going to go over to England. I like their debut album, but even the band admitted that it sounded like a bowl of wet ass. It was a very famous band who became much famous later on with much better recorded albums, but their second album is still my favorite, and that is Carcass. And this is before Michael Amott joined, who would later go on to join Arch Enemy. But second album was basically the same lineup as the first. Symphonies of Sickness. This is the artwork version that's I could show on YouTube. That's PG rated, not the one other one. You can Google that yourself. Yeah, on this one they went from like more of a punkish grindcore band, a little more death metal, still pretty raw, still pretty sloppy, still pretty noisy. But instead of having like almost 24 very, very short, fast songs, it's only got 10 songs, so it's almost like a standard death metal album. Just really good. So this is, I think, where the band's legacy really started to kick in. And then after this, they obviously got cleaner and more melodic and added Michael Amott on guitar, and that's fine. Necroticism's good. Heartwork, obviously, very good album. But to me, Symphonies will always be my favorite. And I like the first one, Reek of Putrefaction. But yeah, this is kind of like the perfect, it's like the Goldilocks, a little bit of the early stuff, a little bit of the later stuff. Perfect. And for the third one, I'm going to stay in England and go to doom metal. And I'm going to go with the second Electric Wizard album. So first Electric Wizard album in the 90s is a pretty typical English doom metal album, a lot like Cathedral. My Dying Bride, it just has a lot of really typical English stuff. It's not bad, but I think at that point they were just kind of playing, this is how a lot of English bands sound. So they just started up and kind of fit that mold. And then on the second one, they said, fuck it, and kind of went off on their own path and really started on a, now they're one of the most famous doom metal album or bands of the last couple decades. And to me, this is the album that really started pushing them down that path. It's a lot slower, dirgier. The guitar tone is just fucking disgusting. It's heavy. It's like Black Sabbath, but if Black Sabbath, instead of going into the path of Volume 4 and Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, they just kept Master of Reality, like digging that hole deeper and deeper and deeper until they got to like the center of the earth with that level of heaviness. So the album after this is the one where that like totally blew up their name and they became huge. But this one was, to me, just as good an album. And it's only got a couple songs on it. And they are long fucking songs. So this is good classic Doom. This artwork obviously is just awesome. It's an old photograph of Anton LaVey and his Church of Satan cadre, but now they transposed it to have like this cosmic kind of psychedelic background. Very cool. So yeah, the second Electric Wizard album from the 90s. It's actually, did I say the name? It's called Come My Fanatics. I don't know if I even said the fucking name of it, but yeah. Electric Wizard. There you go. Great album.
Nice.
And if we ever do a third album is the best, then I could pick these guys again because their third album really was the best, but that's for another day.
Might be a future show. You never know. Steve Keeler.
Good evening, everyone. How's everybody doing tonight?
Hi, Steven.
How you doing? All right.
Yeah.
So I picked 3 albums like I was supposed to.
Mhm.
First one I'm picking is not any particular order. I'm going with Rush. I'm going with Fly By Night. The first album was, I love the first album too. I think this one is better. Of course, it's the first with Neil Peart on the drums. Of course, opening with Anthem. And Vitor and the Snow Dog, that whole thing, Fly By Night, just a great album from start to finish. I could listen to that album all the time. So Rush is in my list tonight. The second one, most people are probably going to hate on this channel, but I went off the rails a little bit. Not as off the rails like Karen did, but System of a Down, Toxicity, 2001. One of my favorite albums. Call it new metal, call it whatever you want. The album it's a classic, metal classic in my mind. Released 2001, starting off with the Prison song. Highlights would be Jet Pilot, Chop Suey, title track, Aerials. So System of a Down. I thought everybody's going to pick a lot of the same things. I tried to reach outside the box a little bit with that. And
One
my
band I never got.
I love that.
Never-
I love that album.
I like one song from them I think that's on that. Is Spiders on that record?
That's on the first one, I think.
It's on the first
yeah,
one?
it's on the first one.
I
Yeah.
like that. And I know the guitar player is a big Edmonton Oilers fan, so I kind of
So there you go. You got to like him a little then, Butch.
not really.
So I thought I would go later in the show, but I'm picking this one anyhow. Mastodon released
Good choice. Good choice.
released Leviathan in 2004, their first concept album, loosely based on the 1851 Moby Dick novel. Blood and Thunder, Sea Beast, Iron Tusk, Megalodon, Aqua Dementia. Some of the songs I liked most on that, but just a great album. So I'm pretty short and sweet tonight, and that's pretty much what I got for you.
That's a great pick, man. That's leagues better than their debut, which it has its moments, but man, Leviathan is so much better.
Mhm.
That's another band I don't get. I've seen them open for, or no, I saw some bands open for them, and I love that they do the Lizzie guitar thing, you know, the twin guitar stuff. That's awesome, but I can never give them a chance. After that guy said something about Priest years ago, that was it. I can't give I can't get past it.
Yeah,
I don't like it either.
I'm with you, Butch.
it was a-
Yeah, I was like, really? You wouldn't have a career if Priest was.
yeah,
around.
that was a pretty stupid statement, but
They
I agree
opened up for
100%.
Priest too, if you remember.
Did they? No, I didn't remember because I don't like it.
I saw that tour.
Maybe
But showed up
Priest
late.
stole their alcohol or something that night.
Yeah, Who knows?
Yeah.
All right, Lynn, welcome.
First, I want to say happy birthday in heaven to my dad.
birthday,
Because it's his
Dad.
birthday.
Happy birthday,
and,
Mr. Mealy.
And that's the angel wings are for him tonight. So anyway, I want to pick something that Bryce actually already picked, but I was picking it anyway because I'm a big Judas Priest lover, so I had to pick Priest, and Victim of Chains is my favorite song ever. So definitely Priest for me. Like I said, not that I didn't like Rock'n'Rolla, but Sad Wings and Destiny was, oh my God, just unbelievable. Victim, Dreamer, Deceiver, Tyrant, Genocide. I can hear it now. Every time he was in concert, he would say genocide, and you just hear those, you just hear it in your head, like I was a kid again. So yeah, that was my number one. My number two is Def Leppard. And again, not that I didn't love On Through the Night. I did love On Through the Night. Stop shaking your head. But and that was 1980. Thank you.
Dick.
But I love High and Dry. I love High and Dry. It was a staple of my childhood. I listened to it every day, every night. I still love it. when I
She
listened
robs
to
my picks every week.
That's why you got to have a stack, Butch.
That's what I did. I brought something else just
Well,
in case.
it's a good thing because I don't have anything else.
God
So
damn it.
this is my thing. I didn't necessarily rob them. I might rob those red shoes though that you have behind you. So that's it. Judas Priest, Def Leppard, and last but definitely not least, because you guys know I'm a big Beatles fan, I'm going with the Beatles. They actually released two. They released Please Please Me in 1963 of March, and then they released in November of 1963 With the Beatles. And I like With the Beatles much better than the first album, although I'm not saying I didn't love the songs on the first album, because I do, but I love this. This reminded me again of my childhood, my nieces and my nephews and my kids, my cousins all play in school in Yorktown Heights. And so, yeah, I'm going to go with the Beatles and Def Leppard and Judas Priest. All a little bit nostalgic for me, not to steal anything from Butch, but that was my thing.
Cool.
So thank you.
Butch.
Well, just to show it, but I'll pick something different. But that's 100% in it because as much as I love On Through the Night, just High and Dry is quintessential. If you're a hard rock or a heavy rock fan and you don't own that record, there's something wrong. So, but we'll push that to the side. I'm going off the reservation with two other ones that I love a lot. One that I know I've mentioned before, and to see if I can get the light. I always want to bring it close so people can see it, but I can never get the light angle. There you go.
What does it say?
Soraya's second record, When the Blackbird Sings. Their first record is great, but the second record is the shit. And I've said forever, Sandy Soraya is my second favorite female singer, and if she did more than 2 albums, she would be number one. Even though Ann Wilson is my number one because she's Ann Wilson, but if Sandy Soraya had done more than 2 records, man, I've seen like 3 live videos of her from the 90s, and she is meticulously spot on every song on all 3 videos that I've seen. Not a crack, nothing, just phenomenal. But yeah, if you've never heard Soraya's second record, or if you've never heard Soraya at all, their second record, Beyond When the Blackbird Sings, is just phenomenal. This one is definitely off the reservation for some people. I love their first record, but the second record is, again, the shit. Malice, License to Kill.
Wow. Yeah.
Produced by Max Norman, 1987. This album has 2 songs that whenever they come on, I always have my music in shuffle. So if one of the 2 songs comes on, both of those 2 songs are played like 5 or 6 times in a row, and I can't help it. The song Breathing Down Your Neck is just tremendous. And of course, now I just went blank on the second one after I just said all that. Against the Empire, Jesus Christ. Those 2 songs, man. Mick Zane and Jay Reynolds and Pete, you'll find this funny because I'm sure you remember with Chris Caffrey. Chris Caffrey used to get called Jay Reynolds all the time on Malice because they had the same exact look back in the day for sure.
Yep.
But James Neal, the singer of Malice, he was supposed to be the next Rob Halford of the mid-late 80s, and unfortunately Malice just never really caught on. But that's both of the records are great, but the second record in particular. And
what do you think of that Max Norman guy? He's pretty good, right?
I've heard some good things about that guy. He gets some good guitar tones for sure.
Yeah.
He's done a couple of good records.
Yeah, just a couple.
just a couple. And there's so many records that I could have picked, that we all could have picked, and not like the first records weren't great. I mean, obviously for me, Van Halen 2 is my favorite album of all time, and it's not like the first Van Halen record isn't phenomenal. I just like 2 even better. It means more to me. I didn't pick that one though, but I picked the album that is the greatest second record in hard rock history.
That's it.
Rainbow Rising. Done.
Forget it. Forget it.
First one is great. I've talked about that before. When I met Ronnie in '94, he told me that he loved the first one. He said the first one was magic, and I told him I like Rising. He said everyone always says to him Rising, but yeah, that's 6 songs of ungodliness. It's just tremendous. So
Mic drop after that.
that was an easy pick for that.
Mic drop after that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Mr. Allo.
Okay, yeah, I thought this one was a somewhat easier topic than the last one. I thought there was a lot of really strong second records.
Yeah.
My first one was Testament. I really dug the first record, but man, I thought the New Order was just amazing. I think it's their masterpiece. With songs like New Order, Preacher, Disciples of the Watch. I mean, I just think it's head and shoulders better above the first record. For my number two, I'm going with Typo Negative. I was a big Carnivore fan. I saw them in '87, and I loved them. And then I saw Typo Negative on their on tour for the first record, right before the first record came out. And I remember being like, "Wow, all right, this is not what I expected," but I still got the record anyway. I dug it, but it's kind of weird. It's kind of Sabbathy and industrial, and
Say the name, Chris.
yeah, I mean, it's almost kind of progressive, like how there's like a million parts to each song, and every song's like 10 minutes long. But man, I really like their second record, Bloody Kisses, 10 times better. They kind of perfected that
Totally.
formula of Black Sabbath meets the Beatles, with a heavy goth element, and just made their songs less abrasive than the first record. And it's the first, I didn't even know, it's the first ever Roadrunner Records album to go gold, and then the first ever
Wow.
one to go platinum. I had no clue.
Sweet.
And then, sticking with Roadrunner Records, one of my all-time favorite bands, and one of my top 10 all-time favorite records, Fear Factory with Demanufacture. I really dug the first record. I know I said I was driving in the car somewhere, and I listened to WSOU, and I heard them play Martyr on the radio. I was like, wow, this is weird, because it's like death metal, but there's this melodic singing. So I went out and I bought the record, and I liked it. It was death metal, it was industrial, but there was definitely not enough of Burton C. Bell's clean vocals on that first record, and way too many fucking songs. I mean, I looked it up today, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, there's 17 songs on this record. No wonder it never just connected with me. But then in 1995, I remember going to Rock Fantasy and buying Demanufacture. It was a bigger sound, better production, way more melodic, better songwriting, less songs. There's only like 10 or 11 songs on there, with songs like Replica, Piss Christ, Demanufacture, Zero Signal. Man, it's just a masterpiece and one of my all-time favorite records.
And another record that defined their tone, their sound, for sure.
Absolutely, yeah, that was their signature album.
That was it, absolutely.
I'd say it was almost too good, because they have other good stuff, but like the second best album is like not even like half as good as Demanufacture.
Never been topped.
They kind of fucked themselves, and they've done good stuff since. But yeah, that one's perfect.
And there's so many different things. Dino's guitar tone is like, oh my God. It's like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah, it's really, I think it was Colin Richardson, I think, produced that. He did a phenomenal job on that album. It really sounds good. It just captures like that Terminator kind of
exactly. You can hear it. It just, it's like you hear that record, and you can see the whole Terminator, the landscape. You can just close your eyes and see the whole movie going in front of you. The way that they made that. You're absolutely right.
And I like your first pick. It's interesting. Like Steve, you remember a couple of years ago when we ranked the Testament albums, we were like, the week leading up to it, we were like, what do you pick between the first two albums as number one, right? Because I've always gone back and forth between those first two.
I mean, I like the first one, but I much prefer New Order.
Yeah.
I like Practice What You Preach. I think that's third.
That's a third album.
I like The Gathering the most.
That's a great record too.
Gathering's awesome.
Because Dave Lombardo was like his ass on fire on that album. It's unbelievable.
I think I picked Legacy. If you go back to that episode, Pete.
Yeah,
I picked the first one. I don't remember exactly right now.
I don't remember either.
That's a tough one, though.
Close call.
They have a lot of really good ones. Yeah, it's definitely tough. So it's funny. I've been watching Ralph throughout this episode, and he looks like he's ready to go to a photo shoot. Like the PR company's going to come in.
I can't tell if it's real Ralph or like a photo of Ralph or.
Ralph is like doesn't move.
Is it photo Ralph?
Glamour shots, Ralph.
Ralph count. He don't move.
Maybe he's gonna pull out a big lounge chair and be a George Costanza.
Count. Are you feeling okay after Saturday? You back to life?
I'm still recovering.
I
It
saw a
was
couple
epic.
pictures, Ralph. You look like you're having a good time.
Well, he
Oh,
was.
boy.
I couldn't
What'd you
believe they
do,
were
Steven?
moshing at the bowling alley.
Yeah, that was a
Uh,
great video, Steve,
I
of
was watching the video.
Show No Mercy playing. Yeah.
Yeah.
They mosh at the bowling alley all the time, Robert.
Nice.
Yeah, it's
Depends
great.
what bands are there.
All right, Ralph, what are your picks?
All right. First, I can't believe I forgot that Dark Angel one. That's like the perfect pick for this. But
Mhm.
I'm going to England. The first Bolt Thrower, great album. But to me, Realms of Chaos,
Oh
the
yeah,
top 5 death metal album of all time.
that's their masterpiece. I think so.
And just the packaging on this album is just amazing. All the artwork, they got all the lyric sheet. It's just amazing. Such cool shit in there. So my number 2, a lot of people think this is the first Sodom, but it's actually just an EP. And this is the first Sodom, Obsessed by Cruelty. But to me, this is a masterpiece. Persecution Mania, one of my favorite thrash albums of all time. I don't think they ever topped this album. Their second full length. And then my number 3, I'm going to go. This is the first CLC album. It was more punk and hardcore than metal, but then their second album, they stepped into metal more, and it's one of the greatest crossover albums of all time. Animosity, absolute classic. Once Mike Dean took over on vocals, they just became a whole different thing. Love this album. And I got a bunch of honorable mentions. But
Yeah, we'll circle back. Yep, absolutely. All right, where are we? Craig.
All right. I got to follow Ralph again. And I wish I would have been able to make it to the birthday bash there, but because like I said, Steve's video looked great that of the bands performing. So but happy birthday to you, Ralph.
thanks, bro.
Happy
But
birthday.
my first one, I went with low hanging fruit for my first one, and I figured I'd leave the bananas and berries, for others. But my first one, for me at least, their first album this band's first album from England is okay, but second album is Heads and Shoulders Above. That Saxon Wheels of Steel is definitely head and shoulders above their debut. Debut has Militia Guard and Big Teaser, Stallions of the Highway, but this, with Motorcycle Man and Freeway Mad, Machine Gun, Stand and Be Counted, just a great new wave of British heavy metal album that still holds up today very well.
I think it's their best album, probably for me.
But between Strong Arm and I like Strong Arm.
Power and the Glory.
That's good too. Wheels of Steel, Machine Gun is my favorite.
yeah,
That's awesome.
Great, yeah.
My second one that's slightly different pick is his first album has a handful of good songs, but I think he hits it out of the park on his second album. And he was by his fourth album, Video Killed the Radio Star. That's Billy Squire with Don't Say No. Really good radio friendly hard rock album. The Stroke, What Do You Want From Me?
Used to play that every weekend.
Lonely Is the Night. Really great second
Pretty much
album.
a perfect record, man.
Yeah.
That was a big bar record back in the
It
day.
was a fun roller skating record.
But holds up really well, and just a really fun listen from '81. And my third one, this for their second album, they switched vocalists, and I like their first album a lot from England. After their first album had a guy with a rougher voice, but they switched to a smoother voice, and this one is Butch Jones approved. I will go with Tiger Bang and Spellbound. Adding John Deverell, a guitar player whose name escapes me at the moment, but Gangland, Tiger Bay, Hellbound, and just the other day on my way to a funeral, I heard "Take It" while I was driving, and it's was such a great song. So definitely a step up from their debut. I like Wildcat a lot, but I prefer John Deverell's vocals, and of course Sykes guitar playing on this to add some extra flavor to the, albeit perfectly competent, but this is a better follow-up to it. So the Tigers
Absolutely.
of Pantang.
Great
It's
picks.
a great one.
Rob.
Hey, everybody. I have, it's funny. You guys were, I had a feeling that's all he was going to pick, the Def Leppard, whether it be Butch or Lynn. So I had that on my list. So I had some other ones to replace that one just in case. And I'm actually going way off the grid. No Priest, no Maiden, none of that this week. So I got three other bands. First band is Daylight Dies. A lot of people don't know who they are, but to me, they're one of the greatest bands in the last 20 years that I've gotten into. They're from the Carolinas, and they have a few albums out. Their first album, called No Reply, came out in 2002. I liked it, but when Dismantling Devotion came out in 2006, that was it. I mean, that to me is a masterpiece of all their albums. Dead Air, Dream Resigned, All We Had. The title track, Dismantling Devotion, is a instrumental. It just blows you away. It's so dark and just heavy. I love that album, and it's one of my favorite albums of all time.
I saw them at a Relapse Records showcase in 2004 or 5 in Manhattan, and I never heard of them until the show, and they were. It was like,
unfortunately, I never got to see them though.
That was the only time I saw them. It was like 10 bands on Relapse, and they were really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw them at BB King's once, and they were incredible. I don't even remember who else was on the bill, but they were.
So that's my first one. Second one, this is tough. You guys were all talking about the first album being great, and this band has really, well, especially their first like 7-8 albums have been incredible. Opeth. First album was Orchid, and it was a good album, but when Morning Rise came out, I mean, that to me is another masterpiece. Black Rose, Immortal, Nectar, the whole album. I mean, it's only 5 songs. Yeah. I mean, to me, it's one of my favorite albums of all time also. And for being the second album, that's what we're talking about here. I always thought it was much better than most of their other albums. Although I do like, some of the later albums too. But this album to me is a masterpiece. And my third album is going to be, well, it was a tie, but I'll go with, Pete knows I'm a big Robin Trower fan, and I've been to Trower since, I think, 79. The first album, Twice Removed from Yesterday, great album, no doubt. But second, Bridge of Sighs, when I heard Bridge of Sighs and I played it, I couldn't stop playing it for like a year. I played it every day, all the time, and it's just one of the greatest guitar rock albums that I've ever heard. Still is one of the greatest albums of all time. I've seen Trower over 30 times just because of this. When I heard Bridge of Sighs and Two Rolling Stone on an album, it just sounded like you were at a concert. It didn't even sound like it was like, you know what I mean? For me, back in those days, that was like, it was like a jam, on a studio album. You didn't really hear that in those days that much. So to me, it's another one of my favorite albums. And if we have honorable mention, I'll talk about the other one. But those are my three.
Cool. James Dewar.
That's right.
James Dewar is the man.
Great
Was the man.
Dewar. All right, my first pick. I'm shocked that Butch didn't pick this one.
Ooh.
Europe, The Wings of Tomorrow.
I did think of it.
Killer. I mean, the first
Johnny.
album is fine for what it is, but man, this album just rips. John Norum. Killer stuff there.
Johnny's angry on that record.
He is.
Johnny's getting angry.
That's right. This to me was a no-brainer. I'm actually shocked that Rob didn't pick this one. Images and Words by Dream Theater. With Dreaming Day Night is cool for what it is, but man, then they got the new singer, James LaBrie, and this is where it all fell into place. One of the great second albums of all time, in my opinion.
Yep.
Fantastic. God, where to go next? I got so many here. All right, here's one. This is a classic example of a band releases a first album and it's really mediocre, and it's really kind of mellow and kind of folky, and the band is comprised of nobodies, and then they ditch the founding members of the band, and the 3 guys left just take it to the stratosphere, and all 3 guys go on to be pretty notable in the hard rock and heavy metal industry. Medusa by Trapeze. I mean, the first album is just total garbage, and then they come out with this, and basically Glenn Hughes, Mel Galley, and Dave Holland. Of course, we know where they all wound up in Whitesnake and Judas Priest and Deep Purple and Black Sabbath and blah 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 blah. This album is so heavy. Glenn Hughes is like 18 years old, I think, at the time, and he sounds amazing. And after the album after this, of course, the guys in Deep Purple scouted him and pulled him into Purple. But yeah, this is one of the great unsung heavy rock albums of the 70s. So
absolutely
good. So good. All right, we'll circle back to Bryce for honorable mentions if anybody's got any.
Cool. And I just want to correct myself from earlier. I mentioned that band Hecate or Hecate and Throne. I don't know if Ralph knows how to pronounce their name right. Maybe.
I always heard it Hecate. Hecate.
Hecate. Okay. Hecate and Throne. They're from Wales, not Scotland, like I said before. So just correct myself there. I got a couple on my honorable mention list. Are we just gonna limit it to 3?
Whatever you got.
Yeah. Okay. I'll do Spreading the Disease, Anthrax, Marching Out by Yngwie, and probably Tooth and Nail, Dokken. So
Butch.
No, well, I love that. That's my favorite. But man, the Anthrax, the first Anthrax, Fistful of Metal, still my favorite Anthrax.
I like the vocals much better from Joey. So man,
I like your Yngwie pick, man, because Marching Out is my favorite Yngwie album.
I've heard you say that a
debut
lot.
is great, but yeah, that's pretty cool. Very good.
Yeah, I should have picked that one. I forgot.
Yeah, I totally spazzed. Yeah, Ryan,
I got 3, and first one. When I was talking about this last week's topic, or last 2 weeks, sorry, of debut albums, my friend says the Finnish heavy metal band Oz, Fire in the Brain, which is a great heavy metal album. And I said, that's their second album. And he's like, what the fuck are you talking about? He's like, I've been listening to that band since 1984, and that's their debut album. I'm like, no, they have a first album that no one's heard. They never reissued. It's totally forgettable. It sucks. Just called The Oz. It's kind of like this 70s, early 80s shitty hard. I don't know. It just sucks.
Really?
I only heard it a couple of years ago on YouTube because it's very hard to track down. But then they come out in 1984 with their second album, just called Fire in the Brain. This is just good classic.
That's a classic.
Early 80s, great metal, yeah. And I've never even seen the actual debut for sale. Yeah, my friends like I've been into them since you were like 2 years old, and I had no idea they had another album before that. So yeah, this album is if you like just good classic early 80s heavy metal album. This one is essential.
It is. I agree.
I got a little weird on this one, just a little.
No, you?
I know, right? The band I've seen the most times of all the bands I've seen. One of the only bands I could put up those Allo numbers. Not many bands I can do that, but these guys I can. I've seen them between 50 and 60 times.
The Story is 666.
No, I've only seen them like 20 times. No, because they're from across the ocean, so it's hard. These guys are from Brooklyn, so it was way.
I was going to say New York band. I know where you're going.
And they're from so it's Candiria from Brooklyn, New York. I used to see them like every week in like the late 90s, early 2000s. First album was like it was like 90s hardcore. They had some hip hop tracks. They had some jazz tracks. They had a lot of very strange, eclectic band. One of my favorite drummers of all time, Ken Schlack. Their second album, Beyond Reasonable Doubt. I bought this when I was 15, 16, and this was an album that like just kind of blew my mind. You know, I was listening to like good stuff at that point, but pretty normal stuff. And just to hear an album where it's like this heavy ass shit, and then the next track is like just, you know, Duke Ellington jazz, and then the next track is like just straight up like NWA hip hop, like not like metal hip hop, like no, just pure hip hop. And then it goes back to metal, back to hardcore, and I'm like, this is fucking wild. And when I saw them live, they only played the heavy stuff. Like they didn't do any other stuff live because they're not going to drag a whole jazz ensemble out on stage. But yeah, some of the wildest shows I ever saw. I used to just travel all over New York, New Jersey, because they one of those bands that would play anytime, anywhere with anybody. They play in somebody's basement. They played a professional
without a bass player.
Yeah, and actually they eventually got a bass player who was a phenomenal bass player, but they played a whole bunch of shows without a bass player. I saw them at the Chance like I feel like a dozen times. They just play with fucking anybody on the planet. They didn't give a fuck, and they usually blew most bands off the stage. So Candiria was this album just might because it was just one of the first ones I bought, so it kind of endeared itself to me.
I guess the question is, Ryan, did you ever see him in a basement Chinese restaurant somewhere?
No, but I did see them in basements. Not a Chinese.
Well, there you go. As long as you saw him in basements,
I saw them in a basement. I think I've seen a lot of bands in basements. That's a whole different topic.
And I dig Kandira's new stuff a lot.
I think it's great. Yeah, unfortunately, that drummer Ken left. He moved to California years ago. This dude was just, I don't know. He was like Buddy Rich, but like playing metal. It was just
He was in that Thomas Hawk. He was in the Thomas Hawk level.
It was. You watch him play. He's like this skinny dude, real sweaty, and he's got like 48 arms and legs, just arms, legs going everywhere. Timing was exquisite, like the level of like Stuart Copeland level timing, but just just like precise as fuck, like a metronome. But really, really good drummer. And the jazz stuff was all him, so he really brought that jazz influence in. But playing this like really heavy shit too. So. Oh man, yeah, but the new guy's good. I've seen him a couple times. They don't play as much like they used to. They're older now. Carly Combs is still a great vocalist. They still kick ass. I saw them a couple of years ago in Brooklyn. I went up. I'm like, man, I've been seeing you guys since I was like 15. And I fucking love you guys. And they probably don't remember, but yeah, it was special. So last one, we're going to Texas. So I love Texas. Black metal band from Texas, one of my favorite American black metal bands. Usually not a genre that gets a lot of press over here, but the band is Absu. It's got this great art, and I love this album. One of my favorite album arts of all time.
Pretty cool.
Then the album is called The Son of Tipperoth. So the first album was called Barathrum Vitriol. It was like a pretty typical death black metal. Didn't have a lot of unique identity. It was real good. Kind of sounded a little like the Norwegian black metal band Dark Throne. Very solid, but on this album, they really came into their own identity. It's like this very sweeping, epic, kind of melodic black metal, but doesn't really sound European. It's got like songs on here that get over 10 minutes and they don't feel long. So it's really, and they go on the greater heights after this. But to me, this is where, you ask someone that's in the black metal, like, what are some of the best American black metal bands? And this name usually comes up. And this album is one of the reasons why they were able to get that level that they did and get that prestige. So, you could tell these guys are some serious black metal motherfuckers. There you go. Yeah. Show those pictures. Great band. I saw them a bunch back then, and they always put on a good show. Cool guys, great show, great albums. They put out a couple more, then they broke up for a couple of years. And that original run of 90s albums was just perfect. So that's what I got. And Karen didn't give me any more honorable mentions. So
okay.
I'll just say Judas Priest again.
I'd ask you to send me stuff about that first drummer, but Butch is going to say, don't you have Google?
Exactly. YouTube. He told you the name of the band, Candiria. Look it up.
Yeah.
I just like to break his chops.
The letter C. Yeah, the new stuff, actually, you probably like the newer stuff, Lynn, because it's way less, I don't know, it's just catchier and...
It's more together.
Yeah, it's less all over which I like that weird shit, but the new stuff is just like good catchy.
Old stuff is all over the place.
Yeah, it's all over the place.
I love it, but the new stuff's very catchy and sing along choruses, still fucking great.
Very good. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm used to liking drummers that are not together, so I might like their old stuff.
Oh, that guy honestly might be my favorite drummer in like rock and metal. He was
nice.
He was something else.
All right, Steve, you got any left?
I really don't, to tell you the truth. I was back and forth with Sabbath with Paranoid, but I don't know if I can do that.
I think that's a pretty good pick, actually.
Pretty good, right? But then I really like the first album a lot, so I don't know.
Yeah.
But other than that, I don't really have anything else, and I gotta hop off, so I'll see you guys next time. Boom.
Okay. Sounds good, Steve.
Peace,
Take care. Good seeing everybody.
Same here.
You too.
Steve.
Shh.
Lynn, you got any left?
Yeah, my dog's freaking out. Yeah, actually, I do.
I don't know that record.
Dog's freaking out. I have that. It's pretty good.
No, my dog really is like.
That's the second album.
Ryan saw him in the basement of a kennel.
I did. It was a little dirty, but
You guys are messed up.
You know what you got to do.
No, you guys all picked my stuff. So, but the one I will say is Billy Joel. He started out with Cold Spring Harbor. The second record was Piano Man. So I'm gonna go with Piano Man because
Great album.
I love Billy Joel and I love Piano Man, and everybody else took all my other stuff.
And that's
So
the only thing
there
she
you
looked
go.
up when she looked up on Google earlier. So that's the only thing she had
I
left.
did not. I was going to say the songs. I had the songs on my phone, dork. I'm trying not to swear, so you be nice.
Whatever.
Keeping it clean tonight. All right.
I'm trying.
She's gonna be clean for about 4 seconds. Wait.
Yeah, till she hears Butch's leftovers, right? All right,
Exactly.
what you got, Butch?
I'll start with one. Motley Crue, Shout at the Devil.
Stop.
So
Stop
yeah, I
it.
got a few quick that I wrote down trying to figure out what I was going to pick. So MSG's second record, MSG, Michael Schenker Group. I always liked that better than the first.
Yeah.
Another band, I love the first record. The first record is legendary. It set a tone. It set a sound. But King's X's Gretchen Goes to Nebraska is monumental. Woof. If anyone ever asks me about King's X, where should I start? I always tell everyone to start with Gretchen.
Yeah.
And then two other ones that I love a lot. Well, Skid Row's second record is tremendous. First record was, kind of an 80s thing, but the second one is just heavy and completely different than that first one. So the second Skid Row record is phenomenal. And then for me, one that I'll always love to death, Ronnie Latigro and TNT, Knights of the New Thunder, their second record, their first English record with Tony Harnell. That record is phenomenal. So there you go.
Bryce's buddy will agree with you on the Skid Row pick.
Oh yeah.
It's a great record. The second one's a great record.
They're both great. I'll take the first one, but
Yeah, that King's X is a good pick. I threw that one out there too.
Yes.
I think we all agree that the Maiden is probably a given for this episode.
Yeah, I had.
As much as the first album is great, Killers is like next level. Yeah.
If the production was better on that first record, I think it would be a different thing.
Yeah.
I don't like the production that much, really at all. But Killers is a whole nother level for sure.
Oh yeah. Chris, we got any left?
Yep, I got two left. I'm going to go with Fly to the Rainbow from the Scorpions. I know a lot of people love Lonesome Crow, which has a very young Michael Schenker.
15,
but for me, it's a little, I like it, but it's a little too
Psychedelic.
Yeah, Butch nailed it. Definitely a little too late 60s psychedelic. And man, I really like the Uli John Roth era. I just think the songs are just so much better. Speedy's Coming. They need a million. It's my favorite era of Scorpions, the Uli John Roth era. And another record is Leprosy from Death. I didn't love the first record, but man, I totally dug Leprosy. I was able to see them on that tour with Dark Angel. I think could be their best record. I mean, all the Death records are great, but Pull the Plug, Open Casket, Leprosy, I just think that record is just so far ahead of the first Death album. And yeah, those are my two honorable mentions.
Ralph will battle you on that one.
Yeah, I go for the first one.
Speaking of Ralph,
I know they're both.
Yeah.
I think they're almost equal to me. I love them both. It's hard to say.
yeah,
I probably would say
never put out a bad album. That band.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
I seen them for the first time on that tour too with Dark Angel.
Yep.
Ultimate Revenge 2 tour. But I gotta say a quick little story about Candiria. To me, Surrealistic Madness was my album by them, but I used to see them all the time back in the day too. But when All Out War was doing their first album, I got invited down to do backup vocals with like 5 people. We were doing like the gang backup vocals, but we went down they were recording where Candiria practiced and Candiria recorded too in Brooklyn. So while we were waiting to do our thing with the backup vocals, we got to watch Candiria, and I got to watch that drummer from like 2 feet away practice their whole like set, and it was amazing. And then I smoked a fat blunt with Carly before Carly Homa came and did the backup vocals with us, and he was so fucking loud and powerful. We had like 4 other guys singing along with him, and really all you can hear is him. He was just so loud and powerful, and there was just a great live band. I didn't keep up with all their newer stuff. I got to check out what they've been up to lately. But
he's a hell of a front man, especially back in the day. When he was around the stage, he was fucking wild.
Yeah, he was like animal let loose from a cage. When he hit the stage, he just exploded.
It was great.
Couldn't stop watching.
I'm getting nostalgic now thinking about seeing it.
First album, great album, Malice Maleficarum, but Consuming Impulse. Is
Yeah, that's a good one. Good
Yeah,
call.
Yeah.
The first War album, it's not really that great, very punk oriented, but then they meddled up a lot with their second album, Some Dogs of the Universe.
Another good one. That's their best album, I think.
For sure.
Carnivore, fucking classic first album, but this is the all-time greatest crossover album of all time. And I disagree with Chris on the typo. I say that the first one, Slow, Deep, and Hard, is better than Bloody Kisses.
That's all right, Ralph, because I will totally disagree with you now. I will 100% take the first Carnivore record over the Retaliation. 100%.
It's so
Man.
close.
Bingo.
It's so close. I think the lyrics on the second one is
Right,
what
yeah.
puts it over the top.
Yeah,
And
that's
the
true.
production
They're both
is a
so
little bit
good,
better,
though.
but I love both of them. They're like neck and neck, you know.
Yeah.
But the First Corner, great album, but step it up and get just better musicianship wise on the second one, Punishment for Decadence.
That's a great thrash band.
Another one where it's like neck and neck. You can go either way, but Infernal Overkill. But my favorite all-time Destruction's always been the second one, Eternal Devastation. And yeah, a couple of the other ones were already mentioned, so I held them up while you were talking about them. But that's it for me.
Cool. Craig.
All right, I have a bunch, and I'll speed round through these in a similar fashion to how I did the prior episode. So to all the SOT people out there in Australia, one, I got the second Kings of the Sun album. This is a really, really great hard rock album. This is Full Frontal Attack. Their first album from '88, self-titled, is very good. This one is even better. And another from Australia, Butch likes this one too. Heavens Don't Go Where Angels Fear to Tread. Very good follow-up to their American titled debut called Bent.
Yeah.
But this one is just a totally slamming hard rock album from '83, celebrating its 40-year anniversary as well.
Especially the title track.
Great song, yeah. Then let's see, I got Lita Ford's second album, Dancing on the Edge, is much better follow-up to Out for Blood.
Absolutely.
In my opinion. Gillan, second album, Mr. Universe, tops
Hell yeah.
tops his the Japanese album, or it's just called Gillan. Although many of the songs are re-recorded for this album, but done with Mr. Bernie Torme on this. I personally prefer the second Kiss album, Hotter Than Hell, over the debut, which has a lot of their classics, many of their classics on here too, along with some other deep cuts that
Parasite.
are enjoyable. Yeah. Maybe controversial pick. I always preferred the second Fight album, Small Deadly Space, over War with Words, although my two
Them's
favorite
fight
songs
words.
by Fight are Into the Pit and Nailed to the Gun, but this I always found was just a better overall album. So, but just a personal preference. Nebula's second album, To the Center. This is great stoner rock from the desert. Features 3 former members of Fu Manchu at the time. Just a great, sizzling, grinding album. I like the second Cadaver album, Abracadaver, over their self-titled debut. Just a good, strong set of songs on this. Mother's Finest from 1977,
Yes.
their second album, Another Mother Further. I do like their first album with there's definitely some great songs in this, but this one is very consistent and
Yes.
a lot of fun. Produced by Tom Werman, and it sounds great, from 1977.
They're a great band.
Nashville Pussy, their second album, High as Hell, a very good, better follow-up to the excellently titled Let Them Eat Pussy. So this is definitely a great follow-up.
Hey, Lynn, do you know where they?
Is standing
Oh, like he's never heard it before.
here. He's never.
How do you think I got the beard?
There you go. Attaboy, Christian.
A lot of
Stop it, Butch. Uncle Butch is a bad boy. Don't you listen to Uncle
Hey,
Butch?
Craig, ask Lynn if she knows where they got the name from.
No, I don't want to know anything about it.
That was excellent timing.
From
I wanna
Uncle
know.
Ted. But
Ted Nugent.
a lot of AC/DC clone bands out there. This one is from Spain. They're called 77. Their second album called High Decibels. This guy sounds exactly very similar to Bon Scott, and they're Spanish. So, but sing in English. Really great album. Check them out if you get the chance. And last
Greg,
two,
I love you, but we don't have to go through the whole fucking collection, do we?
last two, and I dedicate these to our good buddy
You
Rich
should have stopped
Catino.
at pussy.
Jesus.
The second album from LA Guns, Cocked and Loaded. I prefer to their second one. And
Wait a minute. Wait a
and a
minute. Wait a
hot
minute.
slap.
Wait, everyone missed what Lynn just said.
No, I didn't hear it. And a hot slab of Canadian bacon. Lee Aaron's second album, Metal Queen, tops her original debut album.
There we go.
Lynn, go ahead. Say,
Dude,
Lynn.
I can't. I plead the fifth. I watched,
Said it once. Might as well say it twice.
Craig,
No.
Break a sweat, Craig?
no,
I'll-
no.
I'll
I go
say it
from
for you.
watching the St. Jude's Mass at the National Shrine of St. Jude for the past 3 days to this. I gotta repent.
Craig, Lynn says you should have
You gotta
stopped that
balance.
pussy.
Oh, well, no.
He's
You
like,
always
"Wow."
go a step. You always go a step further.
I was afraid of what he was gonna say next. My son is right here.
Well, you like the back
Oh, that
the
was
back
good.
the back picture on this even too is
No,
Oh, there you go.
Classy, yo. Classy.
no.
Rob, you got any left?
Ah.
Yeah, I just real quick. I got the Led Zeppelin 1 I love, but Led Zeppelin 2 is my favorite album of all time from Zeppelin. So, a whole lot of love, of course, Lemon Song. Everything on there, it's my favorite album. I had Def Leppard. I thought about Killers too, because Killers was more my introduction into Maiden than the first one.
Yes.
And then I bought the first one, but Killers was always my favorite of the two. And I'm surprised nobody mentioned Queensryche tonight. The EP is the EP. It wasn't a full album. So
Right.
Warning was the first album, which was a great album.
Yeah.
But it was more of a heavy metal album, where the Rage for Order was more of what they were going to become, which was the prog metal. And Rage for Order for me is my favorite Queensryche album of all time, even more than Operation Crime.
Oh yeah,
No.
My Crime is.
I mean, My Crime is great. Don't get
It
me
is,
wrong.
but yeah.
I like it, but I
Yeah.
always thought Rage for Order was a better album.
Yeah.
Writing,
agree.
they
I
came
love
into
Rage.
they came into their own, because I think the first album was more like a Maiden kind of album. You know what I'm saying? The Warning
First
was.
album's monumental though.
Yeah, of course, but I think Rage for Order is what made them Queensryche. That's my opinion.
Well,
So
they're all great. Yeah.
they're all great, of course. Well,
Hmm.
but I wouldn't
Rob,
have
I'm
this.
amazed you didn't mention Damnation Game by Symphony X. First album, Russell Allen. First album is kind of okay, but this is pretty
Yeah,
great.
no. Well, Russ Allen's is
Yeah.
It's
All right, this one
phenomenal.
might be
It's
kind
Russ
of
Allen.
controversial.
Yeah.
To me, Nightfall by Candlemass eclipses that
Oh.
great debut. The
I didn't
debut's
think of
great, but man, Nightfall, first with
Yeah.
Messiah.
Oh, great album.
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
I like Get Your Wings by Aerosmith a lot more than the debut.
I wonder if that was going to show up.
Yeah, that was kind of a no-brainer for
I
me.
used to play that at my little boombox back in
Yeah, really good, really solid record, right?
Little boombox.
Fate's Warning, The Spectre Within,
Mm.
way better
That's
than the
another good
debut,
one.
way better.
I
than
love
the
that
debut.
cover.
I knew Pete would have that one.
And then last, I'm going to leave all the prog stuff because maybe we'll do the show on the prog seat one of these days. But Grand Funk Railroad's second album, just called Grand
Ooh.
Funk. First album is
yeah,
really
yeah.
cool, but the second album is the shit. This is it.
Mm.
That's way better. That's their best album for me.
Yeah, if it's not their best, it's their second best. Yeah, I would agree. Top two
That's a
albums.
great album.
Yeah, really good, really heavy, really raw album. Great stuff. So that's all I got.
I still have a little boombox. Anyone still have a little boombox?
I do.
Oh, shut up.
I did. Listen, you know what?
Uh-oh.
It's over there. I'm not gonna go get it, but it's on the
This
shelf.
is my little boombox.
There you go.
How
That's
cute,
cute.
it is.
No wonder you can't look up stuff on YouTube.
That's right, because I still have a boombox.
Nothing wrong with boomboxes. Nothing wrong with boomboxes.
That's right, Butch. You leave me alone with my boombox.
So there you have it, everybody. Chris, an hour.
Fucking A.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Not too bad. Let's go. Okay.
Right under the limit.
There you go. We do
Just
pretty
think,
good.
if only we had started on time, because those
you
motherfuckers
could-
doing in the prog seat.
You can blame the proxy guys, right? Yes.
I'm gonna.
Talking about albums they hate, right? Because that's
Right.
what we did.
Some
Yes.
fucking
exactly.
nerd proggy shit for
You
Christ.
should have been on that one.
That's what I said. Chris should have been on that crack in the whip,
Oh,
keeping
it
folks
would've
on
been a
time.
lot quicker.
Train leaves the station on time, or you freaking catch the next one.
There you go. There you go. So yeah, so that the In the Prog Seat show is coming up next week, our 100th episode, next Tuesday, talking about prog albums we hate. And actually, in a month from now, we will have the first ever In the Prog Seat Hudson Valley Squares crossover episode. We're going to be talking about prog bands that went kind of heavy on an album and heavy bands who kind of went proggy on an album. So we're all going to come to the episode talking about specific albums where that happened. So that's coming up in about a month. So stay tuned for that. In the meantime, visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube all together. All the damn
All the
time.
damn time.
I just noticed the Steve Keeler Zoom is still open, but
Yeah,
yet
he's
he's
got
not
to
here.
go, but he's.
You fell asleep.
Yeah. Steve Keeler, Lynn Versace, Rob Lasante, Craig Kaminsky, Count Ralphus, Chris Allo, Butch Jones, Bryce, and Mr. Scow. I am Pete Pardo. Good night, everybody.
Bye,
See you in
Bryce.
2 weeks on the Hudson Valley Squares. Bye-bye.